The latest on the ground in Indiana, where voters could end up deciding who will be the next president of the United States. Plus, protecting Texas children. This state agency head is stepping down, but not before he speaks with us about the challenges ahead. And the state stashing your cash. Not the case much longer after a KXAN investigation. It's all today on State of Texas In Depth. Thank you for joining us. I'm Josh Hinkle. Indiana voters will head to the polls this week, but our own Texas Senator Ted Cruz is already looking past the primary election. This week he announced a running mate, an old foe on the campaign trail.
Hoosiers know that. Words are cheap. Words are cheap. Actions speak louder than words.
The choice could not be clearer between Carly and me on the one side and Donald and Hillary on the other.
Cruz is hoping Carly Fiorina will help him win the Indiana primary. It is his last chance to stop Donald Trump from winning the nomination outright. Joining us today with on-the-ground expertise is Jim Shella from our sister station Wish TV in Indianapolis. Hello, Jim. Let's start with the Cruz campaign. Has Carly Fiorina truly helped Cruz in the Hoosier State?
Well, not according to the polls that have come out here in the last few hours. Donald Trump's lead in Indiana has grown. Worth noting that Ted Cruz is trying everything he can. First, he made an alliance with John Kasich. Then he named a running mate and picked Carly Fiorina, who had a strong organization in Indiana before she got out of the presidential race. And now today he's been endorsed by Governor Mike Pence, an endorsement that all three candidates sought. But so far it doesn't look like it's going to be enough to take him to victory in Indiana on Tuesday.
Well, what about the Democrats? Clinton leads there in the polls, but will she win?
You know what? From what I understand, the Clinton campaign, of course, they want to win here, but they don't think that a loss here would hurt them because of the way the delegates are distributed. They think that roughly a 50-50 outcome in Indiana would still guarantee her the nomination. We still haven't seen Hillary Clinton here in central Indiana, which is the population center. She has made 2 campaign stops in northern Indiana. Bill Clinton's been here. Chelsea Clinton's here today. But we're told that we may not see Hillary Clinton until Monday, and she's not doing any TV in Indiana.
Now, Indiana is not often the deciding vote, with primary politics being so late in the season. What are the voters there saying about this election?
Well, this has been a week to remember in Indiana. We had a contested Democratic primary here between Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama in 2008. Before that, you had to go back to 1968 for a contested Democratic primary. There hasn't been a contested GOP primary in Indiana since 1976. We've got them both this week. We've had 5 presidential candidates in town this week. It's really quite an extraordinary event, something that people here are not used to, and it's, as you might imagine, all the talk.
All right, Jim Shella in Indianapolis. Thanks, Jim. Turning to Texas politics now, state leaders want to regulate who can use which bathroom. This week, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick said he would support any bill that requires people to use the public restroom of their birth gender. For instance, a transgender woman could only use the men's room since she was born a man. Patrick says it comes down to safety, but opponents say that is bogus.
It's a red herring. It's a political ploy. It's pandering to a base, and it's not really trying to find a solution to a problem that exists.
I'm not prejudiced against anyone, but I don't want a man, for any reason, going into a woman's bathroom or a woman's locker room.
The lieutenant governor was also talking about college tuition this week. It's too expensive, and state leaders worry about where that money is really going. Patrick said Texas college costs rose 147% since 2013. He pointed to extra bonuses for university administrators and also tuition set aside for students who can't afford those costs. This week, there was also a lot of talk about mental health care in Texas. More than 500,000 people here struggle with serious mental illness. 1.6 million are dependent on drugs or alcohol, and thousands commit suicide every year. KXAN's Phil Prazen shows us how lawmakers hope to improve this system.
Behind his computer, Dr. Thomas J. Kim can do everything a traditional psychiatrist can.
Is that it's not about geography, it's about access. And what we struggle with today is access to care challenges.
For more than 10 years, he's practiced telemedicine across the country through cameras, keyboards, and screens. He sees the ongoing mental health crisis as a shortage of preventive medicine and education. He says people only get the help they need when it's already too late.
Essentially, the messaging they're getting is, wait until you want to kill yourself, then we'll help you, which is just crazy logic.
It's the logic the Texas House is trying to break. Lawmakers on this task force met Wednesday to try and put the state's focus on preventing the next crisis.
We're critically short of mental health professionals.
Dr. Kari Wolf works in the psychiatric emergency room. She says there are tens of thousands of people who live in an area where a psychiatrist isn't available.
If we had been able to get them care earlier in the course of their illness, they never would have made it to a crisis stage.
Dr. Kim says doctors could find more people in need if only mental health licenses, regulations, and fees could be streamlined for telemedicine. Lawmakers could make those changes in January during the next legislative session. Phil Prazen, KXAN News.
Dr. Wolf says the national standard is 25 psychiatrists for every 100,000 people. Austin's rate is less than half that standard. And away from the big cities, there are far fewer resources. Right now, more than 70% of counties in the state do not have a single psychiatrist. That includes most of the counties in Central Texas. Travis and the counties closest to Austin are the exceptions. But that isn't the only health issue facing the state. Texas is failing at protecting vulnerable children. Next, Department of Family and Protective Services Commissioner Josh Hinkle sat down with us one last time before he leaves office. And later, it's money you're owed, and you don't even realize it. The KXAN investigation you need to see, coming up on State of Texas In Depth. Welcome back to State of Texas In Depth. The way the state makes sure Texans are safe and healthy will soon change. Right now, it's up to 5 agencies under the umbrella of the Health and Human Services Commission. But to streamline that work, lawmakers want to restructure one agency under 3 commissioners. It's complicated, but divides the workload. One commissioner will focus on services like Medicaid. Another will deal with protecting both the young and the old. And the third will prevent and control outbreaks. One of the current agencies has been under the microscope for years, the Department of Family and Protective Services. Lawmakers want answers about deaths in the foster care system and high turnover with caseworkers. One more challenge, the agency's current leader is among those stepping down. Commissioner Josh Hinkle will leave office at the end of the month, but before he goes, he spoke with our KXAN investigator, Robert Maxwell.
And when Governor Perry appointed John Hinkle in 2012, he made a 2-year commitment. And when the judge leaves, he's going to leave a successor, a very similar set of challenges.
This last year, DFPS still reported about 16 child deaths in Region 7, Austin, due to abuse and neglect. Can you say that you're really living out the vision and the agency is living out that vision that you set out?
Yes, absolutely. Child abuse and neglect is a public health issue. It's driven by poverty, domestic violence, substance abuse, mental health issues. It is not something this agency can stop or prevent itself. I established the Office of Child Safety, and so every child death we have or serious injury is reviewed by an independent office. We do an independent report. I established that in 2014. We are doing safety summits every year. So I think we are doing the right things. We are heading the right direction. I mourn every child death, and we look at them very, very carefully.
But when we look at the changes, the transformative changes that were put in place in 2014 is slowly being carried out, I find when I look at numbers in the annual reports, delinquent cases in Travis County continue to go up, for example. Why is that, do you think?
One, there's been an increase in cases coming into the system. I think the cases are more complex. One of the things that we're seeing, the turnover rate. I mean, the one thing that I have not been able to make as much progress on as I would like, although the indicators are going in the right direction, is turnover. Now, our turnover in investigations is particularly high. It's particularly high statewide. That's just not Travis County. So we have an issue with delinquencies statewide. We've got to keep more people on the street. The solution is to have well-trained, tenured people. I think we're going to have to look at, I think the legislature is going to have to look at some kind of salary adjustment for the urban areas.
That's a piece of it.
It's a piece, and it's not, money is not the solution to anything. We need good supervision. We are working really hard on developing supervisor training and program director training, because good caseworkers don't necessarily make good supervisors.
I also asked Judge Spicia if he thinks his successor, retired Texas Ranger Hank Whitman, is a good choice to lead DFPS. Spicia responded saying, quote, "It's not my decision, it's the governor's decision." But he says he's met with Whitman, calls him a smart guy who cares deeply about the children in that agency, Josh.
Now, I know that the Sunset Commission looked at the agency back in 2015, and they told lawmakers to hold off doing anything until the agency had a chance to address its internal administration. Has that really happened?
Yeah, Judge Spicia says it has. He's welcomed the process that's begun. He says it's still very much underway, but he says fires keep coming up. Witness the recent homicide, the murder of Haruka Weiser on the campus of UT. A runaway foster kid is blamed in that death. It's one of the fires that Spicia references. He calls it an incredible tragedy, not only for the agency, but for the families involved. He points out, too, that the agency is going to be conducting an internal review to make sure that kind of thing can't happen again, Josh.
A lot to follow in the coming months.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks, Robert. The state making money by stashing your cash. How leaders are now looking to get you what you're owed after the KXAN investigative team steps in. Next on State of Texas In Depth. You might already know you can go to the Texas Comptroller's website and search your name to see if you have unclaimed money. But the money we're talking about today is not on any state website. It's not publicized anywhere. KXAN investigator Brian Collister discovered more than $22 million stashed in state coffers, money that could be yours.
If someone is caught for something like breaking into your house or crashing into your car, chances are the court will require that criminal to pay you money for damages or injuries you may have had. It's called restitution, but many crime victims are never called to appear in court and are unaware they have money coming to them. That's why state law requires the courts to notify you. Now, this is a list of hundreds of crime victims Travis County says it can't find to give them their money, but we found it's pretty easy.
This whole side of my face, swollen to like this big.
Ian Peary still has pain from a broken jaw 13 years ago. What Peary didn't know until we told him was the court ordered his attacker to pay him more than $7,000. But the Travis County Probation Department didn't really put much effort into tracking him down to give him his money. It only did what the law requires, sending a single certified letter to Peary's last known address.
You know, I didn't move to, Saudi Arabia. I've always been in Austin. It's not been tough to find me.
We found Ian by simply searching for him through social media. And it was just as easy to find this victim online.
I noticed that he parked into my car here, which dented here, and now since it's been 8 years, it's rusted.
A drunk driver crashed into Brittany Weber's car in 2008 and ordered to pay $1,300 in restitution.
I just completely wrote this off like this was just, something that happened to my first car that I've ever bought, that this would happen to it, and which is really awesome that now I have actually maybe some money for my tuition this fall.
Both Weber and Peary are just two of nearly 1,500 crime victims owed restitution, who the Travis County Probation Department claims it can't locate to hand them their money. We wanted to ask the department's director, Charles Robinson, why. He refused our request for an interview, saying in an email, "Our practices are consistent with our legal obligation." So we caught up with the director.
Can we set up a time to sit down and talk?
I think I've already responded to your email, so I think you have my answer.
You haven't explained why you're not doing more. Could you simply do more to help these crime victims? Like Googling their names?
The reason may be his office doesn't do more because it actually profits by holding on to your money, earning interest and keeping a 5% collection fee once it goes to the state comptroller's office after 5 years.
If anybody comes forward wanting the dollars, then obviously we give the money to them.
The comptroller says now, because of our investigation, his office is researching how it can include these names on its unclaimed property website so victims can find their cash.
So is there an ability for us to put individuals' names, so at least there's some searchable data?
When we searched the data, the name of one individual who can't be found jumped out at us. $132 from an old theft case, just waiting for them here at the comptroller's office.
I wanted to see if you could help me find one crime victim in particular that we saw on the list who has funds here in your office.
Now that's interesting.
The Travis County Probation Department says they can't find you to give you your restitution.
I have no clue what that is.
You don't remember being
No,
paying $500
I sure don't.
for a pair of cowboy boots and never getting your boots?
Oh, yes, I do remember that. I do remember that.
You're a crime victim who they can't find to give them their money.
Yeah, they got my name spelled wrong, though, and I don't live at that address anymore. And I never got a certified receipt.
We found the same thing happened to State Representative Charlie Guerin.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, it's a couple of $1,000.
And now, because of what we uncovered, Guerin is working to change the current law to require more be done to find victims to give them their money.
I'm going to look further into this to see what we need to do to notify people, because if it's happening in Travis County, it's probably happening in some of the other 254 counties in the state.
Now, everyone we found has gotten their money, but there's still a lot of money unclaimed. So check out this story on KXAN.com for how you can find out if you have money owed to you. For example, the $4,800 that is currently being held by Hays County, or the $15,000 in Williamson County. And if you live here in Travis County, well, there's $403,000, and we've made it even easier. You just have to enter your name in our searchable database. It's as simple as that. Brian Collister, KXAN Investigates.
We also learned California created an unknown victims unit that successfully located thousands of crime victims and handed out more than $9 million since 2010. The Texas comptroller is now looking into how his office could do something similar. Next on State of Texas In Depth, a final word on the battle brewing over bathrooms. A final word now on the state's bathroom battle. Should transgender people get to decide whether they use the men's or the women's restroom? Our lieutenant governor says it depends on your birth gender. There's a pretty good chance Republicans will put the bathroom ban in their party platform at next month's state convention. A political punch to liberals, maybe, but possibly a law next session. Before they do that, though, consider the side effects. North Carolina passed this law and lost out on businesses relocating there. Not to mention, Bruce Springsteen canceled his concerts there as well. Here, it's a safe bet you'll see plenty of anti-discrimination lawsuits and maybe a lot more bathrooms that aren't gender specific. Thank you again for joining us for State of Texas In Depth. You can catch us every Sunday morning at 8:30. NBC's Meet the Press is coming up in 4 minutes. I'm Josh Hinkle. Have a great day.